Here we go. When it comes to stand-up fighting, I think the most important thing is footwork. If you don't have good footwork, you're always out of position, you're always overexerting yourself, and you're not reaching your full punching power because you're not at the correct distance. So what we're going to work on is footwork along with your punches and synchronizing your hands and feet together. Then you cut. So start in here.
Ready.
Okay, first we're going to try and stay on the balls of our feet as much as possible. And while we're punching, we're going to act like there's a rope tied to our wrist down to the same side of the ankle and on each leg. So when I throw a punch, it pulls my foot forward a little bit each time. This keeps me at correct distance. I don't overextend on my punches, and I don't close in on my distance, my opponent too fast, and make it so that I'm punching like this so I don't have any power on my punches. So we're going to start out by working the feet and hands together, moving straight forward and straight back. Left foot, left hand, right foot, right hand. Each time concentrating on twisting your hips when you punch. And as you get more familiar with this, you can pick up the speed, and your feet and hands go a little bit quicker. The faster you move your feet, the faster your hands will go. And as your opponent attacks you, you can move backwards and throw correct punches with power because you're planting your feet each time. Okay. You can go, once we get started, you can pick up the pace of moving if you want, just to show how you can cover the gap a little bit easier.
So this is just feet?
This is just feet.
So you want me to step like this?
Same thing you were doing.
Okay, start now?
Yeah. And then just one more from that angle, coming straight toward here.
A little more towards you?
Yeah. You just go coming forward
right there. Ready?
Yep.
The next step in foot and hand synchronization is being able to punch while your opponent is moving in a circle around you. It's very important to be able to change your angles the whole time while you're punching on the drop of a dime. Cut. Hold a second. What I'm going to be doing is, while I'm punching, I'm pumping my feet up and down. While I'm doing that, it enables me to change my angle while he moves whatever direction he likes to. So as he's circling to my left, I just readjust my feet each time that I punch. And if he changes directions, I can do the same thing to either side. A lot of fighters have trouble changing direction while they're punching. This footwork enables you to go either direction equally as well with power on your punches. Something different. Sure. The next step in foot and hand synchronization is being able to move sideways or lateral motion while you're punching. It's important to be able to throw different types of punches while you're moving in these angles to change your offense up instead of just straight punches. So today we're going to... The next step in hand and foot synchronization is being able to move lateral motion while you're attacking. And what we're going to work on is also throwing different types of punches. We're going to throw a left hook and then a straight right while moving left and right and synchronizing our feet and hands together. You ready?
Good.
And I'll hold my hand there while I explain, so I can explain my foot position and my hips and here. The first thing when you're throwing your left hook and moving, you want to keep your legs bent at all times so that they're like springs. I have my left leg bent and up on the ball of my foot, turning my hips into my punch. That way with my leg bent and my heel pointing out, I know that I'm turning my hips into the punch. Then I throw my right hand, adjust, and move my right leg a little bit to the angle that my opponent's moving, and so on. The next thing we're going to work on is showing how your feet and hands being synchronized together can get you in and out of your opponent's danger zone without getting hit. So you can land your strikes and get out of the way before he can counter. Good. Now, you have to imagine there's a 3-foot circle at least around your opponent. Anytime you step inside that circle, you can get hit or kicked. So it's important to be able to get in and out fast, and we're going to show you how to do that when you start your combinations. First, we're going to go nice and slow, show you how the footwork goes with the hand, right, left. When I land, I can come right back out because my feet are underneath me. And a little bit quicker now this time. Red light blinking. Yeah. Okay.
Let me do that one more time. Let's just say a little bit quicker now this time.
Okay.
And then go right into
And
it.
you're going to want to go tap, tap, tap. It's going to help with the timing of it.
Actually, if you guys want to move over just a little bit this way, there's a
Okay.
squeaky spot right there. So. Okay. And
Well, it's awkward hitting those. They're so light. I'm used to hitting big, thick leather tie pads. Woof, woof, woof. The next part of stand-up fighting we're going to work on is angles, how you can attain them and how you can use them to your advantage. A lot of martial artists and fighters have problems when their opponent moves to their left or right by just simply doing the same step that their opponent does. So when my opponent moves to my left and I move the same direction, I've not attained an angle at all, and we still have the same ability to hurt each other because we're directly in front of each other. What I'm going to do now is show you when your opponent moves a certain direction, how to step one step and have the angle on your opponent so that you can do all the striking and he's on the defensive. Bleed, bleed, bleed. When your opponent moves to your left, instead of taking a step and following your opponent here, you're just going to take a step with your back foot. So when he moves to my left, all I have to do is take a step and face this direction straight across in front of him. What that's done is enabled me to either throw a hook, skip a kick into him, follow up with some sort of offense. Because I have the angle, I can do all the striking from here. He has to reset his feet before he can strike. This angle, this technique, Jesus, this method of attaining an angle works when you're in the center of a ring or an open room or a cage, but it also works probably the best when your opponent's back is against the cage or the ropes. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. It's important that when you're attaining this angle that you're thinking about your footwork, your legs, and twisting your hips to load up on power. So you're not only attaining the angle, but setting up your offensive strike. As I step, I corkscrew my legs, get my hips set to unload. Automatically I've twisted up and created a lot of tension so I can unload my punch on my opponent. One more time. Here, and unload. Okay. To give you an idea of a basic combination from that angle and that way of setting up an angle, I'll show you a combination now. That didn't sound right. Now I'm going to show you a basic combination you can use from that method of setting up your angle. Left hook, straight right, skip the kick into the body. Hook, straight, skip the kick into the body. This can all be attained before your opponent can correct his problem with his angle. Hook to the head, straight right to the head, left leg to the liver. Now we're going to work on attaining angles off your opponent's offensive strikes. When my opponent throws a jab, it's important that I have good head movement. After I have the head movement, I step to the side and twist on the balls of my feet. This enables me to load up again with my left hook. The next angle we're going to work on is when you move your head to the left off of the jab. The one thing that you have to be aware of is when you move your head left, that you could be moving into a right hand, so that's something that you always have to be aware of, so you have to have your hands up. When you do this, you're stepping at the same time, then pivoting and throwing the right hand right away. Step, step, turn, and punch. Making sure that your feet are set. Another way to attain good angles is right after a strike. So say for instance I strike with my right hand last, then I move to my right again. Because I've moved my opponent's head this way, it's harder for him to follow me quicker when I move to his left and to my right. So if I finish a combination with a right hand, I'll move to the right so that I'm set up to start another combination right away. And then that's what I'll do. Hold on one second. One good example is after a 1-2 combination, right away hopping to the right and coming back in. If you ever watch Roy Jones box, he does this all the time and he does it better than anybody in the world. But it's a very effective way of gaining a second chance to throw another combination. It's very important that after the 2 punches, I'll bring my feet with me, and usually my opponent's going to cover up most of the time, especially in NHB. After I throw the right hand, when I recoil the right hand, I hop directly to the right. That attains my angle, and I've already pulled my hand back to my cheek ready to throw the punch, bending my legs so that I can unload from my legs and my hips with all my power to come across at the angle. Sorry if I'm spraying on you. Next thing we're going to be working on is working angles and throwing knees off of your opponent's offensive strikes. When your opponent throws a jab, and we'll be starting with a jab, working off of parries, you're going to parry the punch down with the same side arm as the punch that's coming at you. After parrying, I want to skip in and put the opposite side hand behind the head, just to keep the head off to the side a little bit to achieve my angle better for my knees. That doesn't sound very good. It's okay. No. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
So when your opponent throws the jab, parry, skip at the same time, hand goes behind the head, throw the knee. We'll go through this a little bit quicker each time. The main key to this technique off of the jab is making sure that you skip right when the parry occurs. That way you've attained and loaded up the knee before he can react. Next we'll be working on when your opponent throws his right cross. It's basically the same movement, except you've got the opposite side leg behind you. So a skip's not quite as necessary, but you do have to cover a little bit of the gap between you and your opponent.
keep
It's
that
all
one.
right. I'm getting cotton mouth from nervousness.
Good job.
Next, we'll be working off countering your opponent's kicks. Whether they're low, medium, or high kicks, it doesn't matter. If you're quick at seeing the kick coming, you can step inside and land good solid punch. Start over. You don't want me out home, huh?
Ready.
Next, we're going to be working on countering your opponent's kicks. Whether they're low, medium, or high kicks, it doesn't matter. If you have your hands up and you see the kick coming, you can step inside of the kick and land good solid punches. First, we're going to be working on when your opponent throws his reverse roundhouse. The main thing here is to keep your hand up, because I have no idea when he throws a roundhouse whether it's coming into my leg, my body, or my head. You see a lot of guys make mistakes. When they see the kick coming, they'll have this hand down because they're turning their body, throwing their right hand, and they end up eating a shin bone and getting knocked out. Okay? So the main thing here is, as long as you have your hand up and elbow tucked in real well, the worst thing that can happen is you're going to get a little bit of a Charlie horse on your leg. If you can land the punch before he can turn on his kick and get his hips into it, you can land a very good powerful punch and not take any power from his kick. We'll start out slow and pick up the pace. Just start out nice and slow. Next technique we'll be working on is when your opponent does his lead leg skip kick. Again, keeping your hand up, because I have no idea whether the kick's going to be coming high. Main thing on this, and the theory behind this, is if he throws his left leg kick, the opposite side of the leg he's throwing, I'm throwing the same side to the left. If he throws his right leg, I'll be throwing my right, just so that I can make sure and protect that side of my body. So when he throws his left leg, my right hand has to be up. I step inside of the kick and land the jab, just to keep him off balance. And eventually, by doing this to your opponent, it'll keep him honest and make him a little more wary of picking his legs up off the ground. Pretty good that time.
Felt uncomfortable.
Huh?
I said felt uncomfortable. But
Yeah. The skip.
Oh, yeah,
Get used to it. We're going to start breathing and step on the hip. Okay, ready? Okay, the next thing we're going to be working on is countering low kicks with your own kicks. The main thing that you need to do, a lot of people, when they block a low kick, will set their leg down here and then skip their kick in. It takes too long to do that. So it's important that after you block the kick, right away, the skip happens so that you can get the kick off quick before he can react. We'll start off nice and easy with this and just work through the technique. The kick's a little bit faster. the next thing we're going to be working on is blocking the low kick on my lead leg and coming back with my reverse leg roundhouse. Again, what a lot of people have a tendency to do is to block, set the foot down, then step the angle, but then it's too late to counter. So it's important that after the block, I don't set my foot straight down, right away I step the angle so that I can get the kick off. Okay, the next technique we're going to be working on is some leg checks, just to simply block the kick before it ever gets started. It's important to do this, especially if you're clashing shins over and over. It can tend to tear your legs up a little bit. So this is a good way to negate your opponent's kicks before they start, and it also bruises up the insides of their legs a little bit, tending to keep them You can stop it right there, can't you, and start it over with the technique?
Yeah, let's just do it over again.
Not made for Hollywood. Okay. Ready? Sure. Okay. The next technique we're going to be working on is leg checks, to stop your opponent's kicks before they get started. On roundhouses, it's important to bring your leg up, keeping no weight on your front leg to stop the kick, and going to the inside of the thigh. That doesn't sound good either. Okay, the next technique we're going to be working on is leg checks. There are some other options that you can go to just besides blocking with your shin on low kicks, just to save yourself a little bit of pain. So when your opponent comes with the low kick, it's important to keep no weight on your front foot. That way I can pick it up easily to stop the kick. This also tends to throw your opponent off balance so that you can follow up with hand techniques. So we'll go through that a little bit for you now. Now we're going to be working on checking the lead leg. It's basically the same thing. I don't want to use my back leg to do this. It takes too long to get my back leg up. So it's easiest just to keep my weight on my back leg so that I can either block or check or whatever I want to do with my lead leg. So it doesn't matter which leg he throws, I can still do it with my lead leg. Okay, the next technique we're going to work on is when your opponent throws a roundhouse at you. The main thing you want to do, obviously you have to be able to tell which leg's coming at you, so this takes a lot of practice. And also you have to take care of your opponent so that you're not, or your training partner I should say, so that you're not beating their legs up too bad. So it's a good technique to practice, but don't do it hard when you're practicing. When my opponent throws his roundhouse, it's important that I remember to keep my hands up. If his back leg is coming at me, I have to lean that way just to make sure I don't get my head taken off if it's a high kick. Also, when he throws a good roundhouse kick, if he's going to put any power into it, his lead leg is going to step an angle. So I know right there that I need to step the angle with him. Okay, that's his supporting leg, that's the planted leg, and I'm going to lean my head as I step and take his leg out from underneath it. When you're practicing this again, it's important to point out that you need to take care of your training partner. So don't kick his leg hard because if you do, there can be some injuries involved. And also you have to remember that the point of this kick is to take your opponent's leg out from underneath him. So while I step, I would be ripping through his leg to take his leg out from underneath him. The lower I kick, the easier it is to take his leg out.
Is that right?
Okay, now we're going to be working on when your opponent does his skip kick with his lead leg. To attain the proper power that he's going to put into a lead leg kick, he's going to have to do the tie skip. When he does that, that at least affords me the opportunity to boot his other leg out from the front. Okay, the next technique we're going to be working on now is when your opponent does his skip kick. When your opponent does his skip kick, his back leg will come forward. I have to step the angle again, tilting my head this way and the top of my body, and taking his leg out with my back leg. Next technique we'll be working on is using your lead leg like a jab when your opponent throws his roundhouses. When your opponent's on one leg throwing a kick, he's always off balance, so it's easy to hit him in around the hip region with the lead leg to knock him off balance. Okay. Now again, using your left leg like a jab when your opponent does his skip kick with his lead leg. It's important to remember that you extend your hips a little bit into the technique just to make your leg a little bit longer and just to put a little extra push into the kick. Now, for all you NHB world champions to be, we'll be working on head movement. It's important to have head movement so you don't get hit, obviously, but also to set up counter punching. To start out, is what you want to get in the habit of is a rhythm. So while my training partner with focus mitts is throwing a jab, I want to duck, come up, give him a target, duck. So I freeze and move. Freeze, move, freeze, move. Good.
Anytime you're ready.
Okay. Go. Good. The importance of this drill, I think, mostly, it's obviously for head movement to get out of the way and to counter punch. But you find a lot of different martial artists when there are kicks being used, and I know this because I was a traditional martial artist for a long time and still am to a certain extent, is that when somebody throws a kick at you, we tend a lot of times to move a long ways away, and then we don't have a chance to counter really that well. So it's important whenever techniques are being thrown at us to be able to move out of the way and still being tight enough to counter. So it's very important to do that and not getting into the habit of when somebody throws a punch, moving a long ways away to get out of the way, and then I have no ability to counter. Good. Okay, now we're going to put this drill into movement, because obviously we're going to be moving around while we're fighting, so we need to be able to move our head while we're moving at the same time. It's important to synchronize your feet like we were doing earlier, synchronizing our feet and our hands. Now it's our head movement with our feet. So every time I take a step, when my left foot touches, I want to get in the habit of moving my head, okay? So it's going to be a rhythm that you get into so that you have good rhythm when you fight. So if he throws the jab, touch, touch, left foot touch, 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 touch. Good. Okay, and then we'll go backwards. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to be working on moving backwards, because obviously you're going to be backpedaling now and then in a real fight. You're going to have to move backwards when your opponent's attacking. So you're going to move your head while he's coming at you. Touch, touch, left foot touch. It's important when you're practicing this drill with head movement, moving forward and backwards, that you do it slowly and get in the habit of good technique. That way when you move fast, you don't have to think about it. Remember, you want to give your opponent a target to shoot for, because he's going to punch usually where your head is, not where it's going to be. So he throws the punch, I step. That way I cover the gap. Come back up, step, up, step. Right leg when I come up, left leg down. Right leg up, left leg down. The whole time you have to remember, if this is not boxing, my opponent knows how to throw knees and kicks. So it's important now when he's coming at me, he can throw knees and kicks at my head. So if my hands are down like this, I could walk in to a leg. Yeah. Okay, now what we're going to be working on is basic combinations off of head movement. One simple one that you can do when you duck to the outside of your opponent's jab is come straight over the top. It's just common sense to come over the top with your right hand and then follow with a hook straight right again. So he throws his jab, move to the outside, straight right, left hook, straight right. Take your time. Okay. I suppose we want to give them time to see it between each one. Okay. Jab. Okay. 1001. Just to get. Okay. Okay, now we're going to be working on when you duck inside of your opponent's jab. Here, you have to remember when you duck inside of the opponent's jab that there could be something else coming, either a right hand, a kick, a knee, so you need to keep your hands up. So I duck inside. Right away I want to be able to look at my opponent. Whenever I duck, I always look at my opponent, and generally I try and keep my eyes right here on his chest so I can see everything. I can see his arms and his legs. So I duck, look, straight right, hook. I hook first, but I have to set my leg, bend it, load my power up on it, come back, straight right, hook. Okay. Again, coiling my hips and my legs, hands are up, hook, straight right, hook. Okay, ready? Go. Build. Okay, the next technique we're going to be working on is a very important drill, is learning how to roll with punches and setting up power punches. Say for instance my opponent throws a left hook. It's important that I cover the back of my head and keep my arm up high to protect myself. If I turn and roll with the punch without protecting the back of my head, I can get hit in the back of the head, and generally that's not a good spot to get hit. So he loads up for his left hook, roll with it. I've coiled my hips, set myself up to come straight back with my own hook. He throws the hook, I roll, I'm looking, and come straight back. So, hook, just between them, don't go boom, boom,
Okay.
boom. You see what I'm saying? Reset each time, bah, hook. Set, bah, okay. Ready? Good. Next technique we're going to be working on now is when your opponent throws a straight right. When the punch comes, generally the idea is I want to roll with the punch and let it slip past, come straight over the top with my right hand. So this overcommits him to the punch. He rolls through and he's really vulnerable because he's off balance and he's really open for a straight right down the middle. If you ever watch Mike Tyson fight, he's very good at this. Several other boxers are very, very crisp with this technique. So he throws his right hand, I roll, and straight back with the right. Get it back to your head. Yeah. You're going to throw it.
Okay.
Get it back. Start out slow and we'll build.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, the next thing we're going to work on in stand-up fighting is the head plum. First, we're going to show you how to do it properly, and then we're going to work some defensive and evasive ways to get out of it. First thing you want to remember is when you do the head plum, is make sure to keep your arms close together so that your opponent cannot throw uppercuts. If my arms are wide apart, he can hit me quite a bit with uppercuts. So I need to keep my arms close. Another thing that I want to do, I see a lot of people make mistakes, is their hands are back here on the back of the neck. It's very hard for me, if he's got any power at all in his upper body and his neck, for me to bend him over to throw correct knees. So my hands need to go up, straight up, fingers on the back of his head, toward the crown of his head. Then all I have to do is bend my wrist to get his head bent over to throw correct knees. You want to do that?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Okay, the next technique we're going to work on in the stand-up fighting area is the head plum. It's important to know how to do it correctly and to know how to get out of it and counter out of it. So we're going to work on those things. But first, I'm going to show you how to do the plum correctly. The thing that I want to remember that's very important is to keep my arms as close as possible together so my opponent can't throw uppercuts. If my arms have a gap underneath, it's easy for him to land uppercuts on me. So my arms need to be very close together. Another mistake that a lot of people make when they're fighting is putting their hands on the back of the neck. If he has any strength in his upper body and his neck, it's really hard to bend him over to throw correct knees on him. So what I need to do, put the forearms here to keep him from covering the gap between us. Hands towards the top of his head, fingers pointing straight up. That way all I have to do is bend my wrists to bend his head down to throw correct knees into his body or his head. So again, with the head plum, remember to keep contact with your forearms, and that way, if he's close, that's fine, but if he goes to grab, I can at least extend him away so he can't get a good grip on me. Elbows are in close, fingers pointing up toward the top of his head, then just simply bend the wrists to pull his head down. Okay. Okay, the first counter to the head plum that we're going to work on is, first of all, obviously I don't want to give him any room to throw correct knees on me, because if he's got enough space to throw it, it's going to have power on it, and it's not going to do me any good, to say the least. So what I want to do is, with my lead leg, step in between his feet as deep as I can. This closes the gap between us, and when I do this, I want to grab right at his spine where his back muscles start and pull him in as close as I can. So right when he gets the head plum started, make sure you don't let your head go down. Straight up, straight back, reach, step, and pull him into you hip to hip. Now the next defense or counter for a head plum. When he's got your head here, if I'm having problems going here, he extends his arms and keeps me back. This leaves him a little bit weak up underneath. So what I want to do is put the webs of my hands up underneath right behind his elbows. I push them both up to start, and then I finish by pushing only one. That turns an angle so I can come back with my punches or kicks. I try to reach, he extends, that leaves him weak underneath. Both go up, then continue with one, boom. Reach, he extends, up, and I can even take off running with him to get him off balance. Also, you have to remember, when they do this and they extend, once I get into here, it makes it really easy not only to strike, throw punches, kicks, whatever, but to drop in for takedowns. Okay, again, out of the head plum. I take my step and reach, he extends, leaves him weak again underneath. Both hands pop straight up. I want to take off running, push with one arm to finish. That leaves him open for the strikes and takedowns. I'm going to do it once. I'll just grab you, you extend, and then I'll just take off with it. Okay. Do it. like that from the other side a little bit. Right here.
Let's try that one time.
Okay, the next defense or counter from a head plum. When your opponent has you in the head plum, it's very easy for him to control your arms with his forearms. If he feels I'm going to punch or throw an elbow with this side, he can stop it quite easily. And when he does this, he can lift up, open that side of my body, and throw a knee. So I open myself up by doing that. So what we're going to do when he locks me up is go palm to palm. Thumbs are included inside the grip, not here, but over the thumb. Hands or forearms are on contact with his arms. I don't slam down on his arms. All I have to do is pop down a little bit. That way at least I have control to be able to throw my elbows over the top. So he's here, and he can grip hard. Grip as hard as you can. And pop, and it throws him off balance enough to be able to follow up with your strikes. Here, he grips tight, pop, pop, pop. Your check will be in a minute. One thing that I need to point out is that when I snap down, I need to make sure that I don't bend over while I snap down. It's important that I keep my neck bowed and strong. So I'm here, the head extends, and the arms go down with the explosion. The next thing we're going to work on is the very important part of closing the distance with your opponent without taking any punishment. It's very important that you have effective striking, good hard crisp punches and kicks to make him respect my strikes so that I can have effective takedowns. If he does not respect my punches at all, he's not worried about getting hit, then he's not going to have a problem defending against my takedowns. First thing I'm going to do is working my footwork. Each time my left foot steps, as in punching drills, my left hand will be hitting. The key to doing this is getting my opponent moving backwards. By getting him to move backwards, he doesn't have effective strikes, and it's hard for him to defend against me taking him down. Now we'll just do it a little bit quicker, so start moving. One more.
And you probably get back the other way.
We'll go there and then we'll just turn around.
Yeah. And just come here,
Put your hands
stop,
like
come here and then stop. That way Dan can stop it and then he can take you back on that way
Okay.
so it doesn't look like you just turned around.
Okay, you ready? Go. Ready?
You might want to do that one. That's one you might want to.
Remember, the timing is very important with the feet and the hands together. Whenever I'm jabbing, making sure my chin is down, right hand on my eyebrow, hand out here. So that way when I'm throwing my jab, my chin's protected by my shoulder. Okay? When my hand hits my target or locks out, my left foot touches the ground. Same thing backwards. Oops.
Only show that one forward.
Only show the jabbing going forward because the point of it is to close the distance for the takedown. Okay, now when you practice synchronizing your feet with your hands, punching with both hands, make sure that you act like there's a rope tied from your wrist to your ankle on each side, so every time one arm moves, it'll pull your foot forward a little bit. The step that I just took, the same side step has to happen with my back leg. And each time, turning my heel out so that I know I'm turning my hips into the punch. And same thing backwards.